again I say, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, we shall bind up the nation's wounds and cherish peace. That government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Thank you. God bless you all.
Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, is renowned for his iconic words, "Government of the people, by the people, for the people," which epitomize his commitment to democracy. His exceptional leadership during the Civil War elevated him to a revered status in American history. By championing the abolition of slavery and issuing the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln earned the title of the Great Emancipator, leaving an indelible mark on the nation. However, his tragic and premature demise left a profound impact, cementing his legacy as one of the most memorable presidents in American memory. Abraham Lincoln entered the world in a humble log cabin nestled in rural Kentucky, born to Thomas and Nancy Hanks Lincoln, with siblings Sarah and Thomas Jr. Their early years were marked by hardship. Moving to southern Indiana, they endured a harsh winter, seeking refuge in a temporary shelter. The following year, they constructed a more permanent log cabin. Together, Abraham and his father toiled to establish a farm, where young Lincoln contributed by tending to crops and clearing fields, though he held little interest in hunting or fishing. Tragically, at the tender age of 9, Lincoln's world was shattered when his mother succumbed to milk sickness, leaving him grief-stricken and bereft. Following his mother's passing, Abraham Lincoln found himself drifting further from his father, harboring silent resentment towards the demanding labor expected of him. However, the subsequent year brought a significant change when Thomas Lincoln remarried Sarah Bush Johnston, a widow with 3 children of her own whom he had known in Kentucky. Sarah proved to be a source of immense support for the grieving Lincoln, recognizing his potential from a young age and nurturing his intellectual curiosity through encouragement and ample reading material. Quickly forming a deep bond with his new stepmother, Lincoln affectionately began referring to her as Mother. Despite his limited formal education, Lincoln's thirst for knowledge remained unquenched as he voraciously consumed books, while also honing his practical skills, notably demonstrating exceptional prowess with an axe as he continued to assist his father on the farm. At the age of 21, Abraham Lincoln stood tall at 6 feet, 4 inches, poised on the brink of his adult life. Relocating to Illinois with his family, Lincoln embarked on a journey of exploration, trying his hand at various occupations beyond farming, which held no allure for him. From splitting rails to navigating the Mississippi River as a flat boatman, Lincoln's ventures led him to settle in the quaint village of New Salem upon his return. There, he embraced a multitude of roles, working intermittently as a storekeeper, postman, and surveyor. The eruption of the Black Hawk War, a brief conflict between the U.S. and Native Americans, thrust Lincoln into a leadership role as elected by local volunteers. Though he did not engage in combat, this experience proved pivotal in establishing crucial political connections. Subsequently, Lincoln transitioned into politics, securing a position within the Illinois state legislature as a member of the Whig Party. During his tenure, he dedicated himself to ambitious projects aimed at constructing an extensive network of railroads, highways, and canals, laying the groundwork for his future political aspirations. Even in the early stages of his political career, Abraham Lincoln was a staunch opponent of slavery, advocating for the expansion of commerce in urban centers over agrarian pursuits. While serving in the Illinois state legislature, Lincoln embarked on a journey of self-education in law, culminating in his successful passage of the bar examination in 1836. Transitioning to a career as a lawyer, he settled in Springfield, the burgeoning state capital, where he represented a diverse array of clients, from local residents to national railroad companies. It was in Springfield that Lincoln's personal life also blossomed. He crossed paths with Mary Todd, a woman of considerable education, and the two soon wed. Their union brought forth 4 children: Robert, Edward, William, and Thomas, affectionately known as Tad. Eager to further his political ambitions, Lincoln successfully campaigned for a seat in the United States Congress, serving a single term before opting not to seek re-election. Returning to Springfield, he refocused his efforts on his legal practice, which flourished with each successive courtroom victory. Despite his professional successes, Lincoln endured personal tragedy with the untimely passing of his son, Edward, shortly before his 4th birthday and just months before the birth of William. Following a brief hiatus from politics, Abraham Lincoln was thrust back onto the national stage when a new crisis threatened to divide the northern and southern United States. Between 1815 and 1861, profound economic disparities had emerged within the nation. While the northern states experienced rapid industrialization and economic modernization, the southern states relied heavily on large-scale agricultural operations, predominantly fueled by slave labor. The deepening divide over the issue of slavery and states' rights came to a head with the passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act in 1854. This legislation, which allowed settlers in Kansas and Nebraska to determine the legality of slavery within their territories, sparked violent clashes between pro- and anti-slavery factions, famously known as Bleeding Kansas. The outrage and opposition to this act led to the formation of the Republican Party, while the Whig Party began to wane. Lincoln, incensed by the implications of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and deeply committed to the principles of freedom and equality enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, emerged as a vocal critic of slavery. Joining the Republican Party, he embarked on a political journey that would ultimately propel him into the national spotlight. Though unsuccessful in his bid for the U.S. Senate against Stephen A. Douglas, Lincoln's impassioned stance against slavery garnered him widespread recognition. In 1858, Lincoln delivered his famous House Divided speech upon accepting the nomination for state senator for the Illinois Republican Party, further solidifying his reputation as a formidable political figure. As whispers of his presidential potential began to circulate, Lincoln's destiny seemed intertwined with the future of the nation. In May of 1860, the Republican Party officially selected Lincoln as their presidential candidate, prompting him to set aside his legal practice and devote himself wholeheartedly to his campaign for the presidency. In the presidential election held that November, Abraham Lincoln once again found himself pitted against Stephen A. Douglas. However, buoyed by support from the northern states, Lincoln emerged victorious, securing the presidency and assuming the mantle of the 16th president of the United States. Yet, his ascent to power came at a tumultuous juncture in American history, with the nation deeply fractured along ideological and sectional lines. Upon Lincoln's election, many southern states harbored grave concerns, perceiving him as an adversary to their interests, particularly regarding the issue of slavery. Even before Lincoln's inauguration, South Carolina boldly led the charge by seceding from the Union, an action swiftly followed by 6 additional states. Together, these states formed the Confederate States of America, igniting the flames of the American Civil War. In March of 1861, as Lincoln assumed office, tensions reached a boiling point when the Confederacy threatened the federal-held Fort Sumter in South Carolina. Despite Lincoln's efforts to avert conflict, the Confederates initiated hostilities by firing upon the fort. With the commencement of the Civil War, Lincoln faced a daunting task ahead. Calling upon state governors to muster troops to defend the Union, Lincoln's efforts were met with further secessionist fervor as 4 additional southern states joined the Confederacy. In response, Lincoln instituted a blockade of southern ports, a strategic move aimed at crippling Confederate supply lines. Thus, the United States became bitterly divided between the Union and the Confederacy, setting the stage for a protracted and bloody conflict that would redefine the course of American history. Amidst the turmoil of the Civil War, the Union, often referred to as the North, stood as the federal government under the leadership of President Lincoln, who served as their commander-in-chief. Comprising 20 free states along with 5 border states, the Union staunchly opposed slavery. On the other side of the divide stood the Confederacy, consisting of 11 slave states that had seceded from the Union. Jefferson Davis presided over this breakaway faction as its president, advocating for the preservation of states' rights and the institution of slavery. Within this fractured landscape, Lincoln's resolve to maintain the integrity of the nation remained unwavering. Despite his limited military experience, notably marked by his service in the Black Hawk War, where he saw no combat, Lincoln swiftly adapted to the demands of wartime leadership. Through astute decision-making and the strategic deployment of resources, Lincoln effectively guided the Union forces throughout the conflict. However, amidst the trials of war, tragedy struck Lincoln's family with the untimely death of his beloved son, William, at the age of 11. This grievous loss cast a pall over the Lincoln household, leaving Abraham Lincoln grappling with profound sorrow. As the conflict raged on, Confederate General Robert E. Lee's audacious attempt to invade the North culminated in the pivotal Battle of Antietam in 1862. This harrowing confrontation, known as the bloodiest single-day battle in American history, would serve as a crucial turning point in the trajectory of the Civil War, further shaping its outcome. Following crucial Union victories, Abraham Lincoln seized the opportune moment to issue the Emancipation Proclamation in the wake of the Union's success. This historic decree heralded freedom for all slaves within the rebellious states, inspiring thousands of former slaves to enlist in the Union Army. In the pivotal year of 1863, the Union secured significant triumphs at Vicksburg, Mississippi, and the iconic Battle of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. The latter, in particular, thwarted the Confederacy's ambitious attempts to invade the North, decisively shifting the momentum of the war in favor of the Union cause. It was following this pivotal victory that Lincoln delivered his immortal Gettysburg Address, eloquently articulating the purpose of the war and espousing the noble pursuit of human equality. As the nation approached the 1864 presidential election, Lincoln faced a formidable challenge for re-election. However, buoyed by Union victories and pivotal battles, including the capture of Atlanta by General William T. Sherman and his legendary March to the Sea, Lincoln secured a resounding electoral victory, signaling widespread support for his leadership. With Union military triumphs signaling the imminent conclusion of the war, Lincoln extended an olive branch to the South, urging cessation of hostilities and a collective effort towards national reunification. In his second inaugural address, Lincoln emphasized the imperative of reconstructing the South and rebuilding the Union without rancor, offering compassion and assistance to those in need. Recognizing the limitations of the Emancipation Proclamation, which only applied to Confederate-held territories, Lincoln proposed a constitutional amendment to abolish slavery across the entirety of the United States, thereby cementing his commitment to the cause of freedom and equality. The passing of the 13th Amendment in January 1865 marked a monumental milestone, signaling the eventual end to 4 years of relentless conflict during the American Civil War. It was on April 9, 1865, that Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Union General Ulysses S. Grant at the Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia, heralding the long-awaited conclusion of the war. Tragically, just a few nights later, Abraham Lincoln and his wife attended a play at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., only to be confronted with a horrific fate. In a cowardly act of betrayal, actor and Confederate sympathizer John Wilkes Booth stealthily entered the president's box and fatally shot Lincoln in the back of the head. Despite desperate attempts to save him, Lincoln succumbed to his injuries in the early hours of April 15, 1865. Lincoln's assassination occurred at a critical juncture, depriving the nation of his visionary leadership precisely when his guidance was most needed to facilitate the arduous process of reunification following the war's end. Nevertheless, Lincoln's indelible impact on the fabric of American history endures, immortalized by his unwavering commitment to unity and equality. From gracing the face of pennies and $5 bills to the grandeur of Mount Rushmore in South Dakota and the iconic Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., numerous memorials stand as testaments to Lincoln's enduring legacy. His inspiring and effective leadership throughout the Civil War and tenure as the 16th President of the United States have solidified his rightful place in the annals of history, leaving an indelible imprint on the collective consciousness of the nation. Want to uncover more pivotal moments in American history? Watch our deep dive into the life and legacy of John F. Kennedy, his rise to power, iconic leadership, and the tragedy that shook the nation. Click now to explore the story of another president who left an indelible mark on history.